Hello everybody, thank you for being with me today. I'm very excited to have you here. Today I'm going to be reading my first fantasy series. And I know what you're thinking. Megan, you've never read a fantasy series before? No, I don't think I have. I've read some sci-fi stuff, I've read some dystopian stuff, I've read historical fiction, fantasy, kind of. It like gives off fantasy vibes, but it classifies itself as historical fiction. But today I'm just deep diving, right? And I'm not even gonna read a fantasy book, okay? I'm gonna go head first and I'm going to read a fantasy series, because how would I know if I really like it if I don't jump in and read a series? I'm gonna be starting off with, hopefully we can see this. What is it? I don't even know. I don't even know the title. We have Daughter of No Worlds, and it's part of the War of Lost Hearts trilogy. I think it's just a trilogy. I've heard good things from it, so hopefully that is the case for me. Hopefully I enjoy it, because I'm kind of nervous. I'm scared I'm not gonna like it and it'll just like put me off from fantasy, but I want to like fantasy, you know, because it's fantasy. It's not real life. It's stuff that you don't see every day. But anyways, I'm gonna get into this. Hopefully it's good. First book of the month for August. Hopefully it's a good one. We're just gonna do a nice little fantasy series to kick it off and to start with. So if you love this series, you let me know some other good recommendations for me so that I can really get into the fantasy vibes. Let's get going. So I'm about 8% of the way through so far. It's not bad. I'm understanding it for the most part, given I'm only 8% through, which is good. That would be not very good if I was 8% of the way through and already mega confused. But so far, we've just got to the point where the main character, I don't even know if I know her name, to be quite honest. She just was granted her freedom. So I don't know what's gonna happen next, but obviously she's free now. I guess we're gonna see what happens. But I know for a fact I'm terrible with names. Any book I read, I cannot remember their. I'll be reading the book and I can't remember what their names are, which is so bad. But it is what it is. Nothing I can do about it. That's where we're at so far. I'm gonna get comfy. I'm gonna just read for the rest of the night, and hopefully we can get into some plots and I can figure out where we're going, because I'm excited. So far I'm 25% of the way through the book and I'm really enjoying it. I didn't think I was gonna like it, and maybe that's just because I think it was because I didn't think I was gonna understand it. I thought I was gonna have trouble figuring out what was going on and just kind of understanding the world and stuff like that. But it hasn't been too difficult. There's not anything too crazy other than the names. Those always get me. I'm so glad that the one guy's name is shortened though, and we just call him Max. The other girl, I don't actually know what her name is, but I definitely know that I'm thinking it wrong. I just got to the part where they went into town together and the queen called out Max in front of everybody to come forward. So I'm excited to see what happens. Very curious, so I'm gonna go find out. Alright, I'm 42% of the way through and I really like it. I don't remember the main girl's name, but I know it's Max, and the main girl, I am sensing some sort of budding chemistry. I actually don't know how old he is, like at all. So I'm hoping he's young so that maybe there can be like a little something in it, because their chemistry is super cute. I like the fact that he wasn't very open to, you know, teaching her and mentoring her and stuff like that, and then after she kind of explained her past a little bit to him, then he opened up and decided that he wanted to help her out. So that was super cute. Currently it's the night before she has her test to get into the orders. She's trying to get into the orders so that way she can, I think, leave the country or leave wherever she is now and go back, and she can kind of help try to get her friends out of captivity, out of slavery. But so far the orders seem kind of fishy to me. Like, I don't know if they're actually good people or not. I feel like they're probably not, but who knows, it could be. So I feel like we're gonna get into some conflict with her getting into the orders and them not actually being who they say they are. Hopefully she can get in if that's actually what she really wants. Now we're witnessing her that she's gonna have to leave Max. She's gonna have to leave his house and stuff so she can go on and do the things that she came to do. That makes me sad. I kind of liked them together. I liked their little dynamic, even though they didn't talk too much. They didn't talk a lot. Hopefully they're about the same age so we can get some romance. I just spent literally 10 minutes trying to look up what the main character's name is so that I can tell you, but I couldn't find anything at all. But she just finished her exam and it was really intense. I feel like that was probably too intense, probably a lot more than any of the other people got, so hopefully she makes it because that was wild. Most exciting part so far is that we have Max's point of view now. Thankfully, I like having the point of views of the guides. I like to see what people are thinking from both sides. Very exciting. So I'm currently 88% of the way through and I just hit a major plot twist. I was totally not expecting that, and now I have no idea where this story is gonna go. Hopefully it wraps up and doesn't leave on a cliffhanger. Not like I'm gonna wait to read the second book anyways. I'm gonna read it like immediately after this. But still, I'm curious now. Definitely was not expecting that at all. I feel like it's kind of an odd thing to throw into a book, but to each their own. Hopefully they can pull it off nicely, because bold choice. Very bold choice. So I just finished Daughter of No Worlds and I really liked it. For my first fantasy book, I would say it definitely wasn't that difficult to get into or difficult to understand. I think that was one of my biggest concerns, that I figured that I was just gonna have a tough time jumping into it. I wasn't really gonna understand like any of the magic system, stuff like that. And don't get me wrong, I didn't understand some of it. It wasn't that confusing, but there was a couple parts where I was like, I don't really understand what's going on. I don't understand like how that works. But it's okay because it's not the real world. If I don't understand it, it's not really the end of the world. I really liked it. I was not expecting to like it as much as I was. I will say that it's nice because you can rate it as a standalone if you want to. I would just cut out the epilogue. I am currently gonna start on the second one. Hopefully this one's just as good. I heard that this one's kind of boring and it doesn't pick up until the middle, but I'm hoping that the epilogue ties in heavily with this one because I'm curious to see how all that plays out. So I just got 20% of the way through Children of Fallen Gods and I'm having a very difficult time keeping up with this one. There's a new point of view. I don't even know what their name is. I think I've been calling him Aphie. I don't even know if it's a boy or girl, to be honest. But I don't understand what's going on there. I think I've had like 3 to 4 point of views from that character, and I have not the slightest idea what they're doing. It usually does take me a minute to get into a book. This one's a lot more war-based. They kind of were betrayed in the last one. I'm trying not to like give anything away. I don't really know how to explain a part 2 whenever you haven't read the part 1, but they had some issues with somebody that they were with. They got betrayed. Now they're going to war, and yeah, I feel like there's really not much for me to say other than that. We're just kind of watching that unfold. It's not necessarily my favorite. I don't necessarily care that much. That's what we're doing. And then we have this other point of view from somebody that I have no idea the relevance. Like, I've the first 3 chapters, I think, or first 2 chapters. I don't even know what was said. I don't remember any of it. Not a single bit of it. So now I'm going into other parts of it. They're talking about like bloodlines and stuff like that, and I'm like, I feel like I missed something, but I don't know if I care to go back and read it. Because honestly, I'll probably just forget about it by the time I finish the next chapter, so it won't really matter. Like, I'll forget that that was even something that I was wondering. That's what happens whenever you try to read books and you have a terrible memory. But hopefully I can get like another 100 pages into this tonight because I really need to finish this. I've been slow poking. Hopefully I can get some of this done tonight, and then cross our fingers I can finish it tomorrow. I doubt it, but I'd like to try. So I made it a little bit farther, and thankfully I now understand. I think it's Aphie. I don't know if that's right. That's just what it's gonna be to me. You can correct me in the comments. But I finally understand where her point of view is kind of coming from. I'm still not fully tracking what's going on with her, like, at all. Maybe I'm just not doing a very good job of paying attention. That's probably the case. It took me about like 20% to actually fully get into this second book so I can kind of comprehend what's going on, and unfortunately for me her chapters had fallen within that 20%. Right now they are on a mission. I think they're the Fae. I think she's a Fae. I don't even know what that is, to be honest. But anyways, her and like 4 other people or something are on a mission. They're going somewhere. I don't know where. That's literally all I know about them right now. But they're going somewhere, and then it just linked up kind of them with the main characters. So now I can kind of see why they're in the story a little bit more, and that's exciting because at first I was like, why are they here? Because I just wasn't understanding and I didn't care about anything that was going on with them. So now they have a reason to be here, thankfully, and now I'm understanding a little bit more of what's going on. There's still just a lot of war. They're just going from, I would assume, country to country. I really don't know, but essentially they're kind of going from like country to country, place to place, and trying to essentially just kind of win the war overall. I don't know. It kind of gives me like a World War vibe. So they have that going on, and then now there's issues back where they just came from, and those like slaves and whatever that they were trying to help escape. So it's kind of a lot, but at the same time not a lot that's very interesting in my opinion. I'm struggling to keep up with this one. I'm struggling to figure out what's going on. I think the last chapter that I just read was probably the most clear chapter that I've read so far, and that's like 30-something% of the way through. I've heard people say that it's pretty slow up until like about halfway, and I'm definitely feeling that. I'm feeling it's feeling very slow to me, very incomprehensible. Maybe that's just because I'm dumb. Maybe you would understand it better, but so far it's still good. I'm still enjoying it, but I'm not like focusing on it super heavily. It's just kind of like, okay, whatever. I'm getting kind of bored, but I'm still gonna finish it. So I got a little over halfway in Children of Fallen Gods, and it's actually starting to pick up, thankfully. I was having a really difficult time with it, to be honest. I wasn't in the mood to read it because it was so difficult for me to follow along with. There was a lot going on, but there wasn't, you know what I mean? Like there was a lot going on, but it wasn't very interesting, so I didn't really care that much. And then there's 3 different point of views this time, one of which is not connecting. It is, but it's not. Like, I understand how it's gonna connect, I feel like, but it's not connecting yet. So they're just 2 totally separate storylines, so I'm already struggling to remember this storyline, and then I'm also like remembering this one as well, which I'm not really doing that great of a job at. We're finally getting into the good parts, I feel like, so hopefully from now on it's good. Hopefully. I'm not wishing that I stopped at the first book, but I definitely think it would have been easier on me. But I got a good chunk in tonight, so hopefully I can get another good chunk in tomorrow and finish this relatively quickly. So I just got like 63% of the way through, and somebody just died. I don't know how we're gonna keep going with the story because that was kind of like a big part of the story. Kind of interesting. I don't know. I was definitely not expecting that, like, at all. I definitely did not think that was gonna happen. That would probably be the last thing on my radar. But hey, it is what it is. We'll see what happens. Because I really, at this point, like, I don't even know what can happen. It'll like change the whole trajectory, I feel like, of the story. Hopefully it's still good. Hopefully they don't take it too far out of left field and it's still like a cohesive theme we got going on. But I just want to let you know because I was shocked. Very shocked. I don't remember what the last thing that I told you was, but now a little bit later, one of like the magic sources that they were using has also disappeared. I don't know what's gonna happen. I think there was a war started in the place where the slaves were rescued. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's what happened. And now they're kind of trying to wage a war to deal with those people and kind of help get all their stuff situated. I don't know. Kind of intense. I don't know what's gonna happen. And then also at the same time, like, I don't know where a third book can go. So I have no idea the path that we're on, but I'm here for the ride. So hopefully all of my questions get answered in this book. Still, we haven't put the two point of views together. Well, those 3 point of views, 2 of them are like the same. One of them is something totally different. But the other point of view, I'm finally comprehending what's going on with that. It took me like 60-something%. But I'm finally understanding like what's going on over there, and I'm following along with their storyline now, which is surprising because all of the other ones before that I have no idea what happened. Hopefully it's not that important. Hopefully the backstory doesn't actually matter that much, because as of right now, what I'm getting at, like, I'm not like confused. Oh well. I just finished Children of Fallen Gods. I definitely would not have seen any of that coming. I like fantasy plot twists because really anything can happen. You know, if you're reading like a thriller book or whatever, there's only so much that they can do. But like here, pretty much anything can happen. So it's more interesting, keeps me on my toes. It's not like I can guess anything really. So many things I was not expecting. I really feel like I can't say anything without spoiling it. I will say a couple things to note. For me, in my opinion, was that it took me getting like 60% of the way through before I was actually comprehending the entire story like as a whole. I know I've said this like probably 20 other times before, but before I was reading 3 point of views, one of which I was not understanding at all, was not following along with. And that's not necessarily fun for me. It makes me feel stupid. It makes me feel like I'm not really getting the most out of the story, even though I feel like it didn't really matter because it all ended up tying together in the end. And I don't feel like there was anything that was said at the end involving that point of view that I didn't know or that I couldn't put 2 and 2 together if I didn't remember. I didn't like this one as much as I liked the first one, just because, again, that storyline, for me, this one was only about 40% of the story that I was like, oh, that's really, really good. And that's under half. That is under half of the book that I liked. That's a failing grade. 40% is a fail. Oh, and let me show you this because I think it's really funny. I changed my my font on my Kindle so that it's I don't know if you can see it, but it's like the dyslexic font, and it's a lot easier for me to read. So I think I'm gonna keep it on that for a while and see what I think. This is my problem. Whenever I read, I don't like read the words necessarily. I skim over it and just like guess what it says, which I feel like is not good. So with that, even if I'm skimming the words, I'm actually understanding what's going on. I'll be reading this line in my head, but my eyes are already looking at this line. I don't know what I'm talking about. Literally, I don't know why this is relevant, but I'm gonna just go ahead and read that with my nice dyslexic font and let you know how that goes. Alright, so I already finished the second book. Now I'm moving on to the third one. This one is Mother of Death and Dawn. I'm very excited for this one. I am kind of sad that it's going to be over, but at the same time, like, I'm not necessarily reminiscing on any of the characters or anything like that. I'm not really reminiscing on the story. I don't want to say I don't care, because yeah, it's interesting, but it's not something that I feel like is going to stick with me for a very long time. There's that. I still do like it. I'm still enjoying it, but it's not going to be something that I harp on, I don't think, personally. I'm going to get into this and drop it on myself and let you know what I think of this last book in the series, and then what I think of it as a whole overall. I also don't even know where we left off. That's not good. I don't remember what happened last. I do. I think. Do I? I do. I do remember how this ended, actually. First of all, I got a blueberry Red Bull because I'm exhausted. That one's solid, but I am, let's see how I am, or I guess where I am. I'm 15% of the way through book 3 right now, and I'm actually liking it so far a lot better than book 2. The second book, I mean, you saw my opinions about that. I was having a really tough time with that one, but so far this one's more intriguing. Where we left off was kind of like a what's gonna happen now, like I don't know what we're gonna be doing, and just kind of catching up with that, where all the characters have been, what they're doing now, and it's a lot more interesting than where we were on the second book, I feel like, at this point. They are still at war, so that's kind of frustrating. It would be nice if they like weren't doing that all the time, but I mean, I guess the high stakes, I feel like at some point in this I was trying to figure out what that word was, and I was talking about stakes, not high risk. The stakes were high. So yeah, it's pretty much all that's going on. They're at war and trying to figure out how to win, and their leaders are so crappy. They're so terrible, and that's really frustrating. But I'm sure everybody that would read this book is also finding them frustrating, so it's not just me. But anyways, that's where we're at so far, so I'm just gonna hopefully crank out a good little chunk of this, because this one's like 700 some pages, and I don't want to be spending the rest of the month for it, because I do want to get more than 5 books in a monthly recap. We'll see how this goes. Of course, I have to start as soon as I'm about to start talking. Anyways, just ignore them. Oh my goodness, the slow burn is getting to me. Like, I'm literally sitting here like, oh my gosh, like, make out. But it's only 24% of the way through, so I don't actually want them to now, but like, ooh. If they don't get together, I'm not gonna be a happy camper. So I just hit 50% in the 3rd book of the, is it the War of Hearts trilogy? Dude, I have such a terrible memory. No, War of Lost Hearts. It's honestly really difficult for me to say anything without spoiling anything. I don't want to give anything away. I mean, I've told you before, they're still in war, so it's just the main theme throughout these books, which makes sense. It's the War of Lost Hearts series. Good one, Megan. But anyways, they are still in war, fighting, trying to get a bunch of magic, fight everybody off. So now I guess the Fae and the humans are coming together, and they're fighting each other. So I would say out of the 3, I'm definitely understanding this one the most. Everything's come together and I'm following along with pretty much everything that's going on. There's not much to say. I can't really give much away. I'm trying not to, even give characters away. But the 2 main characters have teamed up with, I think, one of the Fae. And I don't know if they're trying to defeat the Fae King or like what's going on. I know that their nation is fighting with the Fae. Are those fairies? I really don't know. That's just my assumption. I feel like they're fairies. And I would rather just call them fairies if they are. Maybe that's lame of me. I don't know. I think it's a weird word. Fae. It makes me like feel weird saying it for some reason. But that's pretty much where we're at. So we just witnessed a really intense battle between the two. I think that's like the first that we've actually seen them come in contact with each other, and yeah. So that's pretty much it. Nothing crazy. It's the same. A lot of it's like following the same concept, but it's still good. I'm not mad about it. The last little stretch in the third book, and I honestly have not the slightest idea what just happened, like at all. I'm thoroughly confused. I literally have no idea how they did what they did. I have no idea how they ended up like wrapping everything up. Kind of lost here, but I only have like 30 more pages, so try to figure out if I like the ending. It's the next morning and I finished is it Mother or Daughter? I don't know. I finished the third book in the War of Lost Hearts trilogy. I think that's what it's called. I'm just hoping at this point. But I just finished the last book last night and I really liked it. I think out of all of the books, that one was probably my favorite. That was the most eventful and action-packed, and I was following along with that book the most out of all of them. So the first book was, I wouldn't even say a lot of introduction. It did kind of like throw you into it, so it wasn't like a whole lot of backstory and you were learning the story and learning how things worked as you go on. So in that sense, it was just a lot of coming to terms with kind of everything that was going on, and that confused me a lot because you had Tiziana's, I don't know her name. If that's wrong, I'm sorry, but if I can't figure it out, like, it's really just up to me to come up with her name. But it was Tiziana's point of view. That was fine. That was pretty easygoing. And then there was Afy's point of view, I believe, in that book, and that confused me so much. I just wasn't understanding where it was going. I think maybe like halfway through I finally was like, okay, I can kind of see where maybe this is gonna connect, but I still didn't understand why she was there, and her point of view almost just felt irrelevant to me. Now, I'm not saying it was irrelevant, it still was, but I don't think I comprehended any of Afy's point of view until about like 60 to 70% of the way through the book, and I still understood everything else just fine. Obviously there was probably like little tiny bits and pieces here and there that I didn't quite pick up on that later on they talked about, and I was like, oh, okay, and I just assumed that they had talked about it and I wasn't following along with it, so that wasn't that big of a deal. The second book really lost me. I feel like it wasn't that much war, and it was just a lot of talking about war and talking about starting wars and stuff like that. So for the first probably 60% maybe, it was just kind of boring, I don't want to say boring, but it just wasn't that like eventful in my opinion. So I wasn't really engrossed into the story at all. And then I would say that the last 30 to 40% is where it actually picked up for me and it was interesting. The third book was definitely a lot of war. It was pretty much war the entire time and just war with different people. I wasn't necessarily following along with who all was fighting and stuff, but I think that all came with names. There was just names of the countries and stuff, and I just couldn't remember them all. And then when it came time to talking about them again, I forgot who was a part of this country, who was a part of this country, who like died, who is now like I just there was so much information that for me it kind of got a little bit jumbled. Even now, trying to remember what happened in the first to third book, I don't necessarily recall exactly what happened in each book, and they all just kind of merged together into one series. I would say that you definitely can read the first book if you want to, just by itself. You don't have to continue the story, which is kind of nice. So if you do end up not loving it, it's not like you're on a cliffhanger and you're like, oh, I wonder what happens next. It still continues, obviously, and it gets better and better the farther you go on, but you can just read the first one by itself and be done with it. I will say that the first book, I know there was some romance in the first book and stuff, and it was very slow burn. I don't know if there was any spice in the first book or not. I can't remember. I think in the second book there was some, but not very much. The third book is where the spice started picking up, and I wouldn't say picking up, I would say where it kind of cannonballed in. There was a lot of spice in the third book. Since I'm not a super big spice person, I don't like the way that it's written a lot of times, and that's why I don't like it. It feels kind of cringy and weird, especially with the words that they use, but I feel like her wording wasn't weird. It didn't make it super uncomfortable for me to read. I'm not gonna say I loved it. It wasn't like why I read the book or anything like that, but it wasn't bad. I didn't feel the need to skip through it because it wasn't super long or anything like that. It was pretty small, short little scenes, but I will say that the last book was a lot more spicy than the first two, but that was something that I did note. And then I thought the end was sweet. It like concluded everything. I think everything was pretty much wrapped up. I don't think there was anything that was said. I mean, unless if it was minuscule, which I wouldn't have remembered that anyways. I don't think there was a lot of stuff that they left unfinished that wasn't resolved or anything like that, which was nice. So I did appreciate the ending, and it did give me a good resolution for the whole book. I do feel like that the way it ended and just the way that the books went, it almost felt like the author knew the ending before she started writing it. All of the ending things, like they tied the end up with things that happened in the beginning, and obviously like you can do that without knowing the end, but it didn't feel just totally separated. I think things that ended up happening in the first and the second book showed up in the later parts of the series. So it wasn't just it happened and it was over. They kind of like relived it and rethought about it, and it brought you back to the first book and the second book more frequently than I thought it was going to. That way you're kind of remembering different parts and aspects of the story, which is nice because again, I'm very forgetful if I haven't told you that already. I would say my major gripes with this book, which aren't necessarily major, it was just for me that I wasn't too fond of, there was just a lot of war. If you're not someone that's into the fight scenes and whatnot, then this is probably not going to be the series for you. I don't really mind it, but it went from place to place, so different countries would be at war with each other at different times, and sometimes multiple would be at war with each other all together, and so it was kind of difficult for me to keep up who was like the enemies at certain points, which is not that big of a deal, because at the end of the day it wasn't necessarily important for me to know that, but it would just be nice in terms of following along with the story. And then secondly, I don't think this is anything that you can get around in fantasy series and fantasy books in general, the names. And if you've watched any of my videos that have anything to do with pronouncing names and remembering people's names that are in the series, you know I can't do it. I can't do it. Pretty much the only name in this book that I got was Max. And that's because his name is Max. All the other names I was struggling on. I didn't really know how to pronounce them. I didn't even know if I was pronouncing them right the entire time, but it was kind of just like, I'm reading the book, so I'm just going to pronounce them how I want to pronounce them and how I can remember to pronounce them. But there were so many minuscule characters that would come in every now and then and would talk and would say stuff, and I couldn't pronounce their name. And then some people's names would be super similar to other people's names, just with like a difference of a letter. And it's like, I can't remember all that. I can't remember 3 people having similar sounding names that aren't quite the same. I couldn't do it. So a lot of times they would bring back characters that they had talked about previously, and I would just sit there not having any idea who they were, how they have any relevance to these people, how they even know each other, which is kind of frustrating. But again, at the same time, it didn't feel super necessary that I know that in the first place, so I wasn't that concerned about it. So yeah, I would say as a whole, my first fantasy series was pretty good. I enjoyed it. I would say that the storyline was pretty cohesive. I enjoyed the characters for the most part. Some of them were really obnoxious and frustrating. Now, do I think that I'll be reading fantasy all the time now? Probably not. It takes a lot more to get into it and understand it, and it's a lot more brain power, but I feel like at the same time I can appreciate it for what it is. I enjoy it. But I feel like I would just have to go into it knowing that there's going to be a lot that I'm not quite grasping. There's going to be a lot that I don't necessarily understand, a lot of stuff that's not sticking in my brain, that's just kind of going in one ear and out the other, and just have to accept that whenever I come to a fantasy series. But as a whole, I did enjoy it. I definitely will be reading more fantasy. It's not going to be my go-to, I don't think, but I did enjoy the slow burn aspect of it. That was something that I liked in the first book. In the second book, I liked the direction that it went. I liked the kind of swapping up of events, the little plot twists that happened kind of in the beginning from the conclusion of the first book moving into the second book. That was super fun. And then I liked at the end whenever I finally understood how all of the point of views came together and how they work together in harmony and not in harmony. So as a whole, it was really good. I enjoyed it. But anyways, that's it. That's all I got for you today. Hopefully you enjoyed me reading my first fantasy series. Hopefully you can give me some recommendations on other fantasy series that I can read in the comments. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you've read these books or if you are interested in reading them. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so appreciative of you. I'm so glad that we got to chat together. I'm so glad that you got to witness me reading my first fantasy series. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you hopefully in the next one. See ya.